great pleasure to be with everyone this evening. I know many of you, of course, have been regular viewers here, but we have had a tremendous influx of new brand ambassadors and people coming on board. So certainly glad to go through my basic presentation tonight, just giving you a little overview of some of the education on CBD and this amazing space that's now emerging and in terms of human health and wellness, potential therapeutic benefit. Um, I am the President and Chief Executive Officer of Canaway's parent company, Medical Marijuana Incorporated. We're a public company. We trade on the OTC markets under the ticker symbol MJNA. The company was founded in March of 2009. I became involved as one of the original investors, and over time, I've taken on a obviously increasingly large role with the company. And probably should mention that in March of 2011, we had a new group that came in, a whole different direction for the company, purchased the company, went into a full new direction where we really became more of a hemp company focusing on the non-psychoactive cannabinoid CBD, cannabidiol, and basically developed this whole amazing CBD nutraceutical industry that's kind of swept the world over the past several years now. And we were the founders of this industry. Basically, we did our operation over in Europe where we contracted with farmers to grow a high concentration CBD in a hemp crop. We accomplished this back in 2011 after having worked for 4 years of various crop cycles. Did our extractions over in Europe, got the CBD rich hemp oil, developed all the import export regulations to bring it here to the US, and had our first nutraceutical hemp-based CBD products on US and world markets as of summer 2012. It's been a tremendous ride ever since. We've certainly been able to do some great things in the world and look forward to a good number of things throughout the Canaway network here over the coming months. So here we are. I want to give everyone a good introduction to the medical benefits of CBD and cannabis, just so we're all on the same playing field and up and running with the same information that we can take forth. Obviously, in the cannabis industry, there's a huge amount of propaganda, disinformation, and the rest. Nonetheless, we'd like to set the record straight that these extracts from the cannabis plant family, the cannabinoids, are absolutely vital and essential nutrients that support the optimal health and wellness and functioning of the human body. So the brief history of cannabis, well, this really dates back to the beginning of recorded civilization, about 8,000 BC in ancient China, where various cannabis-based preparations, oils, tinctures, etc., were used therapeutically and medicinally. And then on a recent trip to Amsterdam, I went to one of the cannabis museums, and here I was able to photograph some of these live cannabis preparations that actually dated back from the late 1800s and early 1900s here in the United States. These bottles actually contain live cannabis medicine. Interestingly enough, they've been very well preserved over time, but large pharmaceutical companies such as Eli Lilly had produced these various cannabis-based medicines, and cannabis was part of our U.S. pharmacopoeia going back to the mid-1800s and right through 1942 until this unfortunate Marijuana Tax Act that came about and unfortunately put the end prohibition on cannabis being used here in the country. But to give us a better understanding and flavor for what the cannabis plant family is all about, we look at the cannabis plant as maybe being the parent plant, and the two offspring. On one side, we have industrial hemp with the great industrial benefits, and on the other side, we have marijuana, which is mostly grown very short and bushy, and has basically been grown for a high concentration of THC, which is your psychoactive cannabinoid. Now, hemp, on the other hand, grows very tall and lengthy, as tall as 10 to 20 feet in a very short 90 to 120-day growing season. It's grown throughout the world for its industrial application, fiber, textile, biocomposite. In fact, over in Europe, they grow hemp to make dashboards and door panels and BMW and Mercedes-Benz automobiles. Someday, hopefully, we'll soon be growing hemp to make our plastic water bottles that will actually biodegrade in landfills. But throughout the globe, there are a tremendous amount of industrial applications. And then hemp food products are fully legal throughout the U.S. You can go to any Whole Foods and anywhere in the U.S. and buy your hemp seed oil, and hemp protein powder. And marijuana, on the other hand, basically there are now 30 U.S. states which have legalized the medicinal use of marijuana. And certainly we're excited to see that this is a growing part of our dialogue in the U.S., that 3/5 of our U.S. states now legalize marijuana. And it's nice to see that some of the recent states, such as Pennsylvania and Ohio, well, Pennsylvania offers patients 18 different medical indications. Ohio, they offer 21 different medical indications for use that doctors can write recommendations for. And now that there are 8 states that have recreational cannabis laws on their books, we'll be entering a new paradigm and dynamic here in California, January of 2018. So that's certainly quite exciting. But anyway, just to give you a little difference, an idea of the difference between hemp and marijuana. Of course, hemp can be grown for a high concentration of the non-psychoactive cannabinoid CBD or cannabidiol, and that's what our company is all about these days. So just to review, these cannabinoids are actual special compounds or extracts that can be found from the cannabis plant family. And currently, there are between 60 and 100 fairly active known cannabinoids. And actually, research now has shown there's as many as 146 different named cannabinoids. In addition to this, there are about 400 additional plant chemicals that are found in the cannabis plant family. These include things such as terpenoids, which are your essential oils that give the characteristic smell, your flavonoids, which can give you the characteristic flavor. Flavonoids are what makes blueberries blue or strawberries red. Some interesting therapeutic properties here. And then your other plant materials, your plant waxes and chlorophyll, etc. And interestingly enough, these ingredients all act synergistically together. So these cannabinoids, again, these amazing plant compounds can be found in other plants besides the cannabis plant. You can find cannabinoids in things such as flax, hops, echinacea, common tea, kava, and other plant materials. And interestingly enough, many of the terpenoids, things such as beta-carotene, really seem to have cannabinoid-like characteristics and actions within human bodies. So interesting to see the tremendous therapeutic properties of the cannabis plant family. Now this picture here gives you a nice description. This picture showing the tremendous number of plant, what we call the entourage botanicals. So besides your cannabinoids, all the other amazing plant compounds that act to produce this magnified effect. Now, going further into some of the science here, about the mid-1980s, medicine has discovered this amazing endogenous cannabinoid system that is really a characteristic of all us human beings, and not only characteristic of us humans, but also our pets, our dogs and cats, fish, horses, all mammalian creatures have this tremendous endogenous cannabinoid system. This is basically the largest self-regulatory system in the human body, governing such a wide variety of different functions, things such as mood, sleep, appetite, hormone production, the digestion of food, even metabolism, all fit into this category, the endogenous cannabinoid system. And it's interesting to note that our human bodies, we produce cannabinoid analogs here, meaning that our bodies produce endogenous cannabinoids. The major endogenous cannabinoids are called anandamide. In Sanskrit, the term anandamide means the bliss chemical. Another very long chemical name, 2-AG, is another interesting endogenous cannabinoid. And those of you who might like to get a copy of my presentation here, Dr. David Allen has a wonderful 3-minute review of the endogenous cannabinoid system, and people can click on that link, go rightly to see the nice presentation about Dr. David Allen, a retired cardiac surgeon, who basically says that more lives will be saved by manipulation of this endogenous cannabinoid system than will be saved by all the sterile surgical techniques that have been developed to date. And this is a retired cardiac surgeon making this statement, so that's pretty powerful. Now, here in the endogenous cannabinoid system, we have two main receptor sites. First, your CB1 receptors, which are widely expressed in the brain and throughout the spinal column and the central nervous system. And then your CB2 receptor sites, which are widely expressed in the gut, the viscera, the internal organs of the body, and help to regulate the body's immune function. It's interesting to note that the CB1 neurotransmitter receptor site in the brain is the most widely expressed of all the brain's neurotransmitter receptor sites, and thus we conclude that our bodies are meant to accept these plant-based cannabinoids to basically help support the body's highest level of functioning. Basically, these cannabinoids are food for our brain cells and food for the cells of our body that support our immune system and immune defenses. Now, besides the CB1 and CB2 receptor sites, there are a tremendous amount of additional cannabinoid receptor sites throughout the human body. Here we can see a group called the G protein coupled receptor sites, which control the function of about 800 human genes, or 4% of our overall human genomic sequence. So our anecdotal stories, just the evidence from people using our product, we've seen tremendous benefit with certain genetically inherited conditions, things such as CDKL5 epilepsy, which is named after the defective CDKL5 gene, or FOXG1 epilepsy. Very interesting to see that these patients have been able to overcome their challenges, potentially because CBD is affecting these particular G protein coupled receptor sites. Actually, Dr. Orrin Devinsky, a very famous cannabis researcher from New York University Hospital, basically credits CBD's action on these particular receptor sites as the reason why CBD is helping to control the seizure disorders in these unfortunate epilepsy patients and young children with epilepsy. We also have something called vanilloid pain receptor sites that respond very well to cannabinoids. And there are various cannabinoid receptors, your CB1 receptors expressed all throughout your internal organs, including fat cells of the liver, which help control metabolism. Your lungs, your kidneys have your CB1 receptors, and then your glands, your pituitary, hypothalamus, etc., all have receptor sites for the cannabinoids. It's also interesting to note that the endogenous cannabinoid system is present from day 16 of gestation, regulates the development of the entire central nervous system. Now, here's a nice picture just showing some of the receptor sites throughout the brain, and I'm very excited about the receptor sites, particularly in the hippocampus and the amygdala, two areas of the brain that basically help the body to produce stem cells. And it's interesting to note that CBD has been the only cannabinoid shown to produce this concept of neurogenesis, or the regeneration of new healthy brain cells, nerve cells, neurological pathways. And certainly if this can be proven out in humans, it's only been proven in animals and rats and lab test settings so far, but if this concept translates over to humans, well, this will rewrite the entire face of neurological medicine. Certainly this is quite exciting for us to get involved in some of this research over time. And certainly we believe that patients who ingest plant cannabinoids all seem to move to a much higher level of overall health and wellness. And again, to supplement this large self-regulatory system, the endogenous cannabinoid system within us, we really believe patients should take plant-based cannabinoids or phytocannabinoids on a daily basis. Certainly, we believe 50 milligrams of CBD helps to support this large self-regulatory system, the endogenous cannabinoid system, to a very good degree. Now, vitamin C, it took vitamin C about 50 years since from the time it was found till the time that there was actually USDA recommended daily allowance for vitamin C. And similarly, we believe we're on a same path with plant cannabinoids, although a little bit more accelerated than just 50 years. So soon, we hope to actually have a recommended daily allowance or a serving size. Interesting couple of notes on the endogenous cannabinoids, the phenomenon known as the runner's high, which is a situation where the body is in extreme exercise. Marathon runners experience this. Here, the body's production of endogenous cannabinoids is able to overcome the natural tendency to be degraded by enzymatic activity and the release of this anandamide, which is basically a feel-good chemical that the brain produces, as well as endorphins. It's interesting to note that endorphins don't cross the blood-brain barrier, so the endorphins are responsible for the body high feel, but anandamide is the bliss chemical, and it's responsible for the head high that these runners really will experience. Also, mothers, and of course, those of you who are mothers or certainly expecting mothers know that your body's chemistry changes. And here, mothers do also express a significant amount of cannabinoids. And the production of endogenous cannabinoids overcomes this enzymatic degradation process. And it's very interesting to note that the first food the mother feeds the child, the mother's breast milk, contains significant quantities of cannabinoids as well. Now, another concept in cannabis medicine is this newly emerging concept in the medical community known as clinical endocannabinoid deficiency syndrome. And this was first postulated by another famous cannabis researcher, Dr. Ethan Russo. Basically, if one is deficient in cannabinoids, so one has a very good possibility of developing many of these difficult to treat medical conditions, things such as migraine headache, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, IBS, inflammatory bowel syndrome, etc. And subsequent research has shown that not only do these patients all experience this endogenous cannabinoid deficiency, but all of a sudden, once they start to supplement their diets with plant-based cannabinoids, they all seem to move to a much higher level of overall health and wellness. So this is something that further research now from Stanford University, just out back this spring, basically shows that the onset of Alzheimer's and dementia is brought about by an endogenous cannabinoid deficiency, and thus we feel patients who are potentially at risk for Alzheimer's disease, those that have certain genetic characteristics or family members who've developed Alzheimer's, et cetera, if these patients in their 40s and 50s start to take, say, 50 milligrams of CBD daily, well, perhaps they might be able to put this whole condition and the long-term negative effects to rest and still keep very good mental health, clarity well into their later years. And certainly I've seen enough research. My gosh, I take 50 milligrams of CBD daily just as a matter of course, and many days I'll take an extra 50 milligrams, a total of 100 or 150 milligrams, just because it makes me feel good. So earlier I mentioned this other concept called the entourage effect, and this is certainly another great concept in terms of natural botanical cannabis. And here, again, anyone wanting to get a copy of the presentation, Dr. Sanjay Gupta has a really nice 2-minute review, which he showed on CNN about these 500 chemical compounds native into the cannabis plant act synergistically to produce a far greater, a magnified effect known as this entourage effect. Now, in the pharmaceutical world, the pharmaceutical companies take an active ingredient, just one or two active ingredients, and make this into a pharmaceutical compound. And of course, this has a certain effect. But when it comes to cannabis, all of a sudden, this pharmaceutical paradigm gets turned totally on its head, because the natural botanical version seems to produce these amazing magnified effects. Now, there are certain synthetic forms of THC, for example, that have been actually approved by the FDA back in 1986. A synthetic THC compound known as Marinol was actually FDA approved as a Schedule II. It's run as 20 years. The patent's expired. Now the generic version called dronabinol is actually a Schedule III compound, and patients can regularly go into their doctors and get prescriptions for it and utilize it. But these patients, even though their insurance would cover it, they'd rather go to the dispensary, purchase their cannabis, basically paying money out of pocket, and they do so because they get a much better effect, and they seem to be overcoming many of their medical challenges, and all without the harmful side effects that you find with the medically approved versions. So certainly this is a tremendous trend going on in the U.S. So this is a multi-billion-dollar trend now that certainly is something we're following very closely, and we're certainly seeing the expenditures for Medicare Part D. These are your senior citizens that have Medicare, and their Part D, their prescription drug coverage in the medical cannabis-friendly states, coming well down versus the non-cannabis friendly states. Very, very interesting phenomenon here in the U.S. Now, another great piece of information, I just don't even know where to start with this one, but nonetheless, the tremendous hypocrisy that goes on within our U.S. government is no better illustrated than with U.S. government patent number 6630507 regarding the therapeutic use of cannabinoids. This patent, titled Cannabinoids as Antioxidants and Neuroprotectants, was awarded to a research group headed by Nobel Prize-winning laureate Dr. Julius Axelrod. The research started in 1999. The patent was awarded in October of 2003, and this, on the research side of the government, showing tremendous potential therapeutic benefit for these cannabinoids. Now, on the law enforcement side of the government, the DEA and all the regulatory agencies, they still consider cannabis to be a Schedule I federally controlled substance with no medicinal use, yet nothing could be further from the truth on the research side, because research is showing these cannabinoids to be quite useful in a wide range of potential applications. And certainly you have your antioxidant side of the patent showing great benefit for your inflammatory conditions, things such as metabolic syndrome, all your heart disease, cardiovascular risk, diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis patients, even certain types of cancer fall under the metabolic syndrome category because they're really errors of the human body's metabolic processes. And then on the neuroprotective side, you've got tremendous benefit for your neurological disorders, things such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, PTSD. Of course, now we're seeing great benefit with children with epileptic seizure disorders. We're even starting to see some autism children showing some great benefit by utilizing CBD. And certainly this is an amazing dichotomy that exists within the U.S. government and certainly within society. And if we had as much education on this particular U.S. government patent as we've had propaganda on the negative side, certainly we'd all be rethinking the way we think and act about the cannabis plant. So just here's the abstract from U.S. government patents showing these amazing benefits. And certainly here we also see that the non-psychoactive cannabinoids, the patent says, are much preferable to use because they avoid the intoxicating side effects that the psychoactive cannabinoids will generally entail. Now, this morning, I mentioned earlier, I took my 50 milligrams of CBD, and certainly I feel great throughout the day, a great focus, mental clarity, etc. Worked a good full long day, and I'm here presenting to you all this evening. But it's interesting to note that I'm fairly sensitive to THC. So 3 to 5 milligrams of THC, and I'd be, boom, asleep right here in the office all night long and probably wouldn't wake up till about the middle of the day tomorrow. So give you an idea of the psychoactive versus the non-psychoactive cannabinoids and the effect that these non-psychoactive cannabinoids can provide. You can take much larger doses, potentially having a much greater therapeutic effect, again, without the intoxicating side effects. So, there's a huge amount of research going on through the community. One of the areas that one of our pharmaceutical clinical development partners very well focused in on is regarding traumatic brain injury. And Canna Life Sciences, one of our portfolio companies where we've invested in the company, it's an early stage biotech startup company. One of the license agreements it has with our National Institutes of Health is to develop a cannabinoid-based pharmaceutical medication for the treatment of CTE, or this traumatic brain injury, which is unfortunately becoming the industrial disease of the National Football League and soon to be classified as the industrial disease of the National Hockey League. Now, it's interesting to note that there's been some research from UCLA Medical Center in Torrance, California. They looked at 446 young adults who unfortunately here in California suffered automobile accidents and related head injuries because of this. Now, because this patient population were young adults in California, many of them were regular cannabis users, and certainly cannabis has been very popular here in California since its legalization for medical use back in 1996. But the results of this study, very interestingly enough, showed that the regular cannabis users among this patient population of young adults who had these head injuries, the regular cannabis users were 80%, 80% more likely to survive a traumatic head injury. And this is presumably because their brains had that extra layer of neuroprotection, like a second football helmet that's always with your brain cells that protects you from these traumatic injuries. And certainly the neuroprotective benefits that medical cannabis and CBD has been able to provide. So the research was published in the American Surgeon. For those of you doctors and all that would like to get a copy of the presentation, the link right here to that particular study. But from this, we really feel that every young at risk for head injury athlete, all our up and coming football players and soccer players, lacrosse, etc., or the gals that play field hockey or equestrian riders, really should be taking these non-psychoactive plant-based cannabinoids because they're very much less controversial. There are no negative long-term or short-term, any kind of side effects, if you will. And certainly the fact that we can protect our brains. I mean, my gosh, if I'm a parent and I have a young child, I'd certainly be giving them a nice serving of CBD on a very daily basis because kids are kids and they just feel they're invincible and they sometimes do reckless and crazy things. And unfortunately, in my career as a physiotherapist, I saw some of the things that have gone wrong with ill-advised activities from these youngsters, particularly on the night out after a couple of cocktails and all the rest. But nonetheless, we really think that at some point, the National Football League is going to mandate this not only at the NFL level for the professional athletes, but also at the college level and even at the high school level. So hopefully soon we could get this pushed across the finish line with some of our research and have this absolutely mandated. And this will open up a tremendous sales and marketing potential for those of us who are representatives of our company's products. Now, getting into the overall phenomenon of these neurological diseases, well, some interesting research from the Mayo Clinic shows that over the past 30 years, a tremendous increase in the occurrence of these neurological diseases. The numbers basically show that for every 10 calendar years of life, us men have a 24% higher risk every 10 years of developing Parkinson's disease. And certainly this is an amazing trend that's going on throughout the world. Many other neurological diseases are similarly on the rise, and certainly we can look at many potential factors for this. Though I'm not here talking to you on my cell phone, we have a tremendous amount of cell phone activity going on through us, and our bodies act as the antenna, picking up these microwave signals and all the radiation, which over time tends to degrade our central nervous system. Our foods today are all produced basically with agrochemicals, and these agrochemicals and the toxins all get into our food supply. And even if we're eating organic foods, many times the wind will actually take the chemicals from the unfortunate soils that are being utilized with Monsanto, GMO, and all the other herbicides and everything, and blow this over to the organic foods. So even now our organic wines are showing traces of glyphosate and other chemical compounds. Certainly things such as our artificial sugars and aspartame, why it's still allowed in the market, I can't understand it because it's certainly shown to be a proven neurotoxin. Anyway, these things are all affecting and basically working to degrade and attack our central nervous systems on a daily basis. And to this point, we haven't had anything we can do to help fight back. But now with CBD and these non-psychoactive cannabinoids, all of a sudden, oh, well, we have a defense that we can not only help to fight off the attacks of our central nervous system, but help to regenerate, rebuild, and re-strengthen on a daily basis. And my gosh, anyone who understands this science, how can you not take your CBD and cannabinoids on a daily basis? So our company, our parent company, Medical Marijuana Inc., have a huge number of firsts. Actually, we were the first publicly traded company in the U.S. to engage within this legal cannabis, the medical cannabis and industrial hemp space. We created this entire CBD hemp oil category, along with the first pipeline from Europe. We introduced the first natural botanical hemp-based CBD products in the world and U.S. markets going back to the summer of 2012. We were the first to bring a legal cannabis-based product into the country of Brazil as of April 2014, where the regulatory authorities there legalized our products as a prescription medicine, the same product that you can get here over the counter, just order right off online here in Brazil. You need a doctor's prescription. You have to go into your doctor, get a prescription. You have to fill out a whole huge stack of importation paperwork. We have customer service people that help people of Brazil filling out these papers and the rest to be able to import our products successfully. And even at that point now, we've got the government of Brazil actually reimbursing people in their healthcare system for the cost of our products. So we've developed this market within Brazil, April 2014. In Puerto Rico, we've had 12 product registrations. And in Mexico, February of 2016, we had to develop a special fully THC-free product. We went ahead and did that. Since then, we've been the only legal cannabis-based product in the country of Mexico. And certainly it's very exciting now to show that you can all see this, that the government of Mexico has now decided to subsidize our products for treatments. And this is something that we're very excited about. That we've had our first state of Mexico decide to order products for us for patients in their state, and certainly they'll be paying for it through their healthcare system, and it's quite exciting. So we're the first country to be able to do this. We're certainly the first company in terms of direct selling, having developed Canaway, and we love our place in history. We believe that many times that the future of this industry looks incredibly bright with a huge number of receptor sites for cannabinoids expressed throughout the human body, with this large self-regulatory system, the endogenous cannabinoid system governing so many functions that we think the next 100 to 200 years is going to keep our medical community busy as could be, just researching the potential benefits of these cannabinoids that we can all get today with these natural botanical products. So I mentioned this fully THC-free product that we had to develop for the Mexico markets. It's available now in Canaway as our pure CBD oil. This actual product would actually qualify for world anti-doping standards, and currently we're undergoing a review process to actually get this approved so that our professional sport and Olympic athletes could all take this particular product. Again, this pure CBD product does not metabolize into any of the 207 banned compounds. We're certainly excited about this phenomenon that's been developing. Now, moving forward, we have had a wonderful cannabis-based researcher, probably one of the most famous people here in the U.S., Dr. Don Abrams, who's actually the chief of what's called hematology and oncology. This relates to blood disorders on your hematology, and oncology, of course, your cancer and cancer patients. So chief of oncology and hematology at University of California at San Francisco, Dr. Don Abrams sees many of his patients with post-chemotherapy issues. And for many years, he's been recommending these patients medical cannabis because it helps address their issues of pain, depression, nausea, vomiting, loss of appetite, sleep, etc. And recently, he's joined the board of one of our pharmaceutical development companies, Axon Biotechnologies, and certainly we're now educating him on the non-psychoactive cannabinoids, and CBD does seem to have a tremendous role here because it seems that from our anecdotal evidence, patients who take CBD on a post-chemotherapy basis seem to recover at a much greater rate. And another wonderful product that we've developed with Canaway is this detox bath soak. And we believe every post-chemo patient should definitely be on detox bath soak, at least 3, if not 4 soaks per week, adding a good amount of CBD to their diet, and hopefully they'll be able to overcome the challenges that they face with pain, depression, nausea, vomiting, loss of appetite, sleep disorders, and other issues. So again, another great market for us to target. The research only at an anecdotal level so far, but certainly we're excited to do further research throughout the globe in terms of post-chemotherapy recovery with cannabinoids and CBD. Now, speaking of research, of course, there's a huge amount of research, as I mentioned, going on throughout the globe. Here, epilepsy, we have a British pharmaceutical company actually has moved their operation and headquarters over here to the U.S. to try to get a epilepsy medication through the FDA and on markets here. We're also doing some great research in Mexico. We've had 2 wonderful studies that have been published recently, and we're very excited to show those results here in just a few moments. Metabolic syndrome, great research going on in Israel. And earlier I may have mentioned also interesting research in terms of broken bones, osteoporosis, and rare bone disorders. It seems that CBD helps to improve the nutrient absorption across the cell membrane, and particularly of calcium, which has great benefit for your osteoporosis patients, of course, your patients with broken bones and other rare bone disorders. There are a couple of young startup early stage biotech, biopharmaceutical companies here in the US partnered with Israeli-based research groups. Some interesting research out of Brazil, actually, in Parkinson's disease. There's a wonderful video that's actually a 2-minute video. It's totally gone viral. A patient with very advanced Parkinson's, terrible shakes and tremors. You know, a patient would not be able to get the key into the door lock of his home to be able to get inside. And all of a sudden takes CBD, and they have him 2 minutes later just perfectly calm, relaxed, and amazing how this CBD has been able to help some people with this particular condition. In terms of Alzheimer's, great research locally here in San Diego at the Salk Institute, Dr. David Schubert, with some great research showing cannabinoids not only reduce inflammation in the brain, but also the buildup of a very toxic brain chemical called beta amyloid, which is basically the hallmark and characteristic of Alzheimer's. And it's interesting to note that beta amyloid's cousin, a toxic protein called tau, is the characteristic of CTE, at least unfortunate head injury patients. So hopefully cannabinoids may be able to address both beta amyloid as well as tau, and maybe make a real dent in this Alzheimer's and CTE issue, which is definitely affecting a great number of Americans. Some good anti-cancer research here, some very early stage research in the U.S. Dr. Sean McAllister, California Pacific Medical Center, showing that CBD, when he puts CBD in a petri dish filled with metastatic breast cancer cells, CBD causes a programmed cell death. And its action here is because CBD actually switches off a defective gene that causes the metastasis or the spread of this unfortunate cancer. So very interesting early stage research, but certainly bodes quite well for the future. And then Dr. Robert McCallum at University of South Carolina showing great research. Again, early stage petri dish models, leukemia cells in petri dish, adding CBD, again, CBD causing programmed cell death. Here the mechanism's a little bit different. CBD activates certain enzymatic pathways which all of a sudden allow the human body to recognize these cancerous cells as harmful invaders, and all of a sudden kicks in the body's immune defenses and starts to attack and kill and erode away at these cancerous cells. So very interesting research here, and certainly, again, we believe the next 100, 200 years can be very ripe for the research community in terms of cannabinoids. having great effect on human health and wellness. Now, for our own research, we've had two doctors out of Mexico do studies with patients with epileptic seizure disorders. And here we put some of the research on one side of the screen in the light blue, and over on the other side of the screen, we put Dr. Orrin Devinsky's research with a pharmaceutically developed version of CBD called Epidiolex. Now, one of the first things to note is that on our natural botanical side, and this is with your pure CBD oil, look at the dosing. In very small doses on a relative basis, between 1 and 4 milligrams of CBD per kilogram of body weight. And yet on the pharmaceutical side, between 25 and 50 milligrams of CBD per kilogram of body weight. So here, on the pharmaceutical side, they're giving many, young children, 4, 5, 6, 7, 800 milligrams of CBD daily, where on the botanical side, all that children are taking 10, 20, maybe 25 milligrams of CBD. And yet the median seizure reduction reported on the pharmaceutical side showing a 36.5% reduction in seizures, definitely a positive event for them. But on the botanical side, 67% with Dr. Aguirre's study, so almost twice the benefit. And certainly this is exciting. But then looking further into the study and research on the botanical side, look at all these amazing quality of life improvements. 83% of the families showing the child showing better emotion, 88% showing the children now have better cognition, better sleep, better appetite and feeding. These children are, they have not only epilepsy, but all these other developmental challenges. And all of a sudden, they're overcoming these challenges and starting to interact much more favorably with their family members. And one of our doctors has great video testimony from these families showing how these children are now starting to interact with their offspring and their other brothers and sisters, where previously this had not happened. Now, on the pharmaceutical side, of course, you don't really see much in the way of quality of life improvements, but unfortunately, you also see serious adverse side effects to the point where 30% of the families actually had to pull their children from the studies. On the botanical side, you don't see any of these side effects. So I think this bodes very well for the future of natural botanical cannabinoids. And here is a second study done by Dr. Saul Garza Morales in Mexico, again showing significantly less dosing of product. And yet here, Dr. Garza is showing a 84% average reduction in seizure disorders among children. This is well over twice, almost 3 times what the pharmaceutical side has been showing here. And again, with no adverse side effects. So I definitely think that this bodes very well for the future. We're certainly excited about further study and research to be able to prove out the many benefits of CBD. Now, again, here in some of these countries, such as Mexico, Brazil, etc., this product's only available by doctor prescription. You can't get it over the counter like you can here in the U.S. So I also mentioned earlier about this amazing research from Stanford University that came out this April showing that the root cause of Alzheimer's dementia is truly an endogenous cannabinoid deficiency. And certainly, some of the images and scans here show you what a normal brain looks like. In an Alzheimer's brain, you can see all the swelling and inflammation. You can also see some of the areas of the brain which have been eroded away by the unfortunate activities of the disease. And certainly, we believe that with cannabinoids, we can have a significant impact, maybe moving the diseased brain more over towards the healthier looking brain. And, the whole industry by itself is an emerging industry. Obviously, many of us have encountered a great opposition, and even the great quote from Albert Einstein shows the great spirits have always encountered violent opposition from mediocre minds. Nothing could be more true than those of us in the cannabis industry fighting for the future here, but nonetheless, the science and research is supporting us 100%. And once this research gets shown throughout the community, throughout our political community, et cetera, we believe that the end of cannabis prohibition here is going to be very soon at end. Now, some great products that we have introduced recently. We've been able to remake this hemp vape product. I know a lot of our kids and children, teenagers love the vape products, and it's quite a phenomenon. But we truly believe there's some medicinal benefit to this, and so our new vape cartridge has 100 milligrams of CBD in here, and certainly this gives you quite a good value for your money because the vaporization product is inhaled and it goes directly into the cardiopulmonary system, so it's a very direct, immediate effect. Certainly we're excited about this, particularly because we don't use any toxic chemicals. It's also interesting to note that this could be used by basically any patient because a characteristic of all of us living humans is that we all breathe. And a medical researcher at Temple University mentions that pharmaceutical medications should all be taken by vaporization. Many times pharmaceutical medications are taken in pill form, and this goes through the digestive tract and it gets to the liver, and the liver metabolizes the medication into very harmful chemical compounds that have terrible side effects. And to be able to take medication in a way that doesn't go through the digestive tract, either by a topical application or potentially by a vaporized application, can potentially keep the side effects of traditional pharmaceutical medications down to a very significant degree. So we're looking at all these alternative delivery methods. One of our pharmaceutical partners, Axon Biotech, actually by a chewing gum method, because here we have in the oral mucosa very widely expressed microcapillaries and blood vessels that absorb the cannabinoids directly into the bloodstream, again, without having to go through the digestive process. So we look forward to more information and further research here to show the benefits of some of these products, such as the vape products, which again have this very immediate uptake right into the cardiopulmonary system and great effects directly to the brain. Now, not only do we have 100 milligrams of CBD, but we also have some very interesting essential oils, such as alpha-pinene, myrcene, limonene, linalool, and without any of the propylene, glycol, glycerin, or other additives. So this is really a very friendly product, and certainly with some great benefits. I love my vape. I do it daily, and certainly encourage you to take a look at this. Again, here, just showing some of our terpenoids that are in the product, and these give you a very nice effect. Certainly, some of them have a good effect to not only boost your immune system, such as alpha-pinene and your limonene, but your myrcene and linalool actually have a very nice sedating, calming, relaxing effect. So they really give you that nice kind of relaxed focus sense that I'm very excited about. A little bit more information about some of our essential oils and that's the characteristics here. Those of you can read along here. But many of these terpenes are actual bronchodilators, so they help people overcome breathing challenges. And we're going to be very excited at some point in the future to do a study with COPD patients, a very end-stage lung disease patients who have very difficult labored breathing challenges. And we're certainly excited about the potential application here. And again, another of the terpenes that you can read and understand a little bit more about the potential benefits of. And finally, linalool. This is a terpene that one of the pharmaceutical companies who actually has a approved product in European and Canadian markets, well, they use a botanical form of cannabis, and they use this particular terpene for a good amount of their formulations. And this linalool is very rich in the vitamin E, which improves immune functions. It's used in aromatherapy as a sleep aid, a relaxant, and treatment for anxiety. And certainly, we're quite excited to have this in our products. Now, we also have some great essential oils on our own. We have an immunity product with limonene, an energy product with beta-carotene, and a tranquility product with linalool. And I'm very excited about us getting into this market because over time, I think we're going to have more and more of these amazing terpenes combined with CBD and get some amazing effect. I know we're very much in the research on a couple of new terpenes, and really would love to be able to introduce a couple of new ones to you. We're experimenting around here in the office with a couple of them, and couldn't be more excited about the future here, because I really think that some of these are going to make tremendous improvements in people's overall health and wellness. And again, just a little product information and some additional information on each of our products. The immunity product featured here, the energy product here, and again, anyone wanting to get a copy of this presentation, you can get that and carry some of these notes along with you. And finally, our tranquility product. Can't thank you enough. Certainly, we're glad to take questions through our support group, Canaway. Let's see, support@canaway.com. Our great team here with Chris, Octavia, and the group. Certainly, we appreciate their support. Obviously, we're growing at a tremendous clip. It's been really exciting to see, and I can't thank you enough for your audience participation this evening. And Chris, I think it's about time we wrap up. So thanks, everyone from downtown San Diego. Wish you all a wonderful evening, and we'll see you all at the Canaway event very, very soon. Thanks again, everybody.